Lucille Ball's final interview with Johnny Carson left the entire studio in tears. America's most beloved comedian, the woman who made 60 million people laugh every single week, sat across from Johnny and broke down completely. What she revealed that night shocked everyone who knew her. For 40 years, Lucy had been the queen of comedy, the brightest star in Hollywood, the woman who seemed to have it all. But on April 18, 1989, just 8 days before her death, she walked on the Tonight Show stage and told Johnny Carson a truth so devastating that grown men in the audience openly wept. 20 million viewers watched as the woman who built an empire on laughter couldn't stop crying. The cameras captured something nobody had ever seen before. Lucille Ball, completely broken, admitting the one thing she'd been hiding her entire career. Johnny Carson, who had interviewed thousands of celebrities over 30 years, later said it was the most heartbreaking moment in Tonight Show history. This wasn't supposed to happen. Lucy had appeared on The Tonight Show dozens of times, always quick with a joke, always in control, always performing. She was 77 years old, and everyone at NBC knew she was sick, but nobody expected what was about to unfold. The producers had planned a light, nostalgic conversation about I Love Lucy and her incredible career. Instead, they got something completely different. What happened that night would become the most replayed clip in tonight's show history. Mental health professionals would use it in therapy sessions. Millions of people would say it changed their lives. And Johnny Carson would never forget the words Lucy whispered to him as she walked off the stage for the last time. But before we get to that devastating moment, you need to understand what led America's funniest woman to completely fall apart on national television. April 18th, 1989, 5:30 p.m. backstage at NBC Studios in Burbank, California. Lucille Ball sat in her dressing room, staring at her reflection. The makeup artists had done their best, but they couldn't hide what was happening to her. The cancer was winning. She lost 30 pounds in 2 months. Her hands trembled constantly, but she'd insisted on doing this interview, and nobody could talk her out of it. "Miss Ball, we're ready for you in 5 minutes," a young production assistant said nervously. Everyone on staff was terrified. This wasn't just any guest. This was Lucy, the woman who basically invented the sitcom, the first woman to run a major television studio, an American icon. Johnny Carson was in his own dressing room, unusually quiet. His longtime producer had briefed him. "Johnny, she's really sick. The doctors don't think she has much time. She specifically asked to see you. She said she has something important to say." Johnny had known Lucy for over 30 years. They'd become friends back when he was just starting out, and she was already a legend. He'd watched I Love Lucy reruns as a kid. Now, he was about to interview her one final time, and something in his gut told him this would be different from every other interview he'd ever done. At 5:35 p.m., the studio doors opened. The audience filed in, buzzing with excitement. Lucy was scheduled as the first guest. People were thrilled. Some had grown up watching I Love Lucy. Others knew her from Here's Lucy or The Lucy Show. Everyone expected to laugh. The Tonight Show audience always laughed when Lucy appeared. But when she walked onto that stage at 5:47 p.m., the laughter died in their throats. Lucy moved slowly, leaning heavily on a cane. She wore an elegant burgundy dress, and her signature red hair was perfectly styled. But something was wrong. Her face looked gaunt. Her famous smile seemed forced, and her eyes, those expressive eyes that had sparkled with mischief for 4 decades, looked haunted. The audience stood and applauded, but it wasn't their usual enthusiastic response. This ovation was different, quieter, more reverent. People were clapping for a legend, yes, but they were also saying goodbye. If you've ever lost someone you love, stay with this story. What Lucy reveals next will break your heart, but it might also save your most important relationships. Keep watching. Johnny stood and walked from behind his desk to greet Lucy, something he rarely did. He took her hand gently and helped her into the guest chair. For a moment, they just looked at each other. The cameras caught something raw passing between them. This wasn't host and guest. This was 2 old friends who both knew this was goodbye. "Lucy," Johnny said softly, his voice already thick with emotion. "Thank you for being here. Where else would I be, Johnny?" Lucy replied, and the audience laughed, grateful for any moment of normally. You got the best seat in town. For the first 15 minutes, everything seemed fine. Johnny asked about I Love Lucy, and Lucy told a famous story about the chocolate factory scene. The audience laughed. She talked about working with Desi Aries, carefully avoiding anything too personal. She was performing, doing what she'd done masterfully for 40 years, making people laugh while revealing absolutely nothing real about herself. But Johnny, who'd built his career on reading people, could see through it. He could see her hands shaking. He could hear the slight tremor in her voice. He could see her fighting something, some emotion she was trying desperately to control. "Lucy," he said gently, deviating from his prepared questions, "you've given us so much laughter over the years. What's given you joy?" The question hung in the air. Lucy's smile faltered. She looked down at her hands, then back up at Johnny. The audience sensed a shift. The energy in the studio changed instantly. "Joy," she repeated quietly. "You know, Johnny, that's an interesting question." She paused. The silence stretched. Millions of viewers leaned closer to their televisions. "People think because you make them laugh. You must be happy," Lucy continued, her voice becoming softer. "They think because you're successful, you must have everything you want. They think because you're famous, you must be fulfilled." Another pause, longer this time. Johnny didn't interrupt. He knew something was coming. "But what if I told you," Lucy said, her eyes beginning to glisten, "that I spent my whole life making people laugh while I was dying inside? What if I told you that every smile you saw on TV was covering up the biggest regret of my entire life?" The studio audience went completely silent. You could hear the cameras moving. Someone in the back row coughed. Johnny's face showed genuine shock. This wasn't in the script. This wasn't planned. Lucy's hands gripped the armrest of her chair. A single tear rolled down her cheek, cutting through her carefully applied makeup. "Johnny, can I tell you something I've never told anyone publicly?" Johnny Carson, who'd maintained professional composure through 30 years and over 20,000 interviews, could barely speak. "Of course, Lucy, anything." Lucy took a shaky breath. "I'm dying. The cancer. The doctors give me maybe 2 weeks. But that's not what I need to say." She wiped her eyes roughly, smearing her mascara. "I need to talk about Desi." The audience gasped. Lucy and Desi Aries' divorce had been Hollywood legend. They had created the most successful show in television history together, then destroyed each other in one of the most bitter divorces of the 1960s. Lucy never spoke about it publicly. Never. She deflected questions about Desi for 30 years. But now, with nothing left to lose, she was ready to tell the truth. "Everyone thinks I left Desi because of his drinking, his infidelity, his gambling," Lucy said, her voice breaking. "And all of that was true. He did all those things. But that's not why our marriage really ended." She looked directly at Johnny, tears streaming freely now. "I destroyed our marriage, Johnny. Not him. Me." "Lucy, you don't have to." Johnny started, but she held up her hand. "Yes, I do. Because in 8 days I'll be gone. And if I don't say this now, I'll die with this regret eating me alive." She was fully crying now, her whole body shaking. "Desi asked me to quit the show. Not at the beginning, but later. After our son was born, he begged me. He said, 'Lucy, we have enough money. Let's just be a family. Let's watch our kids grow up. Let's travel. Let's live.' The studio was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning humming. And I said, 'No,'" Lucy continued, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. "I said no, because I loved the fame more than I loved him. I loved the applause more than I loved our family. I chose being Lucy Ricardo over being Lucy Aries, and it destroyed everything." Johnny was openly crying now, not even trying to hide it. Several audience members were sobbing. The camera operators were wiping their eyes. "Desi died in 1986, Lucy said, 3 years ago. And you know what his last words to me were? I visited him in the hospital 2 days before he died. He took my hand and he said, 'Lucy, I never stopped loving you. Not for one single day.'" She completely broke down. Her shoulders shook with sobs. Johnny moved his chair closer and took her hand. And I realized, Lucy gasped between sobs, that I had thrown away the love of my life for what? For a TV show? For fame? For people to know my name. Desi is gone. My children barely know me because I was always working. I have 3 Emmy Awards and a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and I would trade every single one of them for one more day with a man I loved. The entire studio was crying, not just tears, but full-body shaking sobs. The audience, the crew, Johnny, everyone. "I'm telling you this," Lucy said, looking directly into the camera, her makeup completely ruined, her face red and swollen. "Because some of you are making the same mistake right now. You're choosing your career over your family. You're choosing success over love. You're choosing everything that doesn't matter over the only thing that does." This moment changed everything, but what Lucy said next left the entire studio completely shattered. The cameras almost stopped rolling. "Don't go anywhere." Lucy composed herself enough to continue, though tears continued streaming down her face. "Do you know what I did 2 weeks after Desi died?" she asked Johnny. "I went to his house, our old house where we lived when we were happy, and I stood in the driveway, and I screamed at this guy. I screamed, 'Why didn't I say yes? Why didn't I just say yes when he asked me to choose him?'" She covered her face with her hands, her voice muffled. "I've had 3 years to think about this. 3 years of waking up every morning knowing I made the worst decision of my life. And now I'm dying and I can't fix it. I can't go back. I can't tell Desi I'm sorry. I can't tell him he was right. I can't tell him that every single award, every magazine cover, every moment of fame meant absolutely nothing compared to losing him." Johnny couldn't speak. He just held her hand and cried with her. "The night before Desi died," Lucy continued, her voice barely audible. "Now, he told me something else. He said, 'Lucy, don't make our mistake. Tell people. Tell everyone. Choose love. Choose family. Don't let them choose fame over what matters.'" She looked up at Johnny with devastated eyes. "He made me promise. And I've been too much of a coward to keep that promise until now." Lucy turned to face the camera directly, addressing the 20 million people watching. "If you have someone you love and you're putting work first, stop. If you're missing your kid's baseball game for meetings, stop. If you're choosing a promotion over your marriage, stop. I'm Lucille Ball. I'm one of the most famous women in the world. And I'm telling you that none of it, absolutely none of it, is worth losing the people you love." Her voice broke completely. "Desi and I created the most successful show in television history. We had everything, and I threw it away because I was afraid that if I stopped performing, people would forget about me. Well, guess what? They will forget about me. In 50 years, maybe 100, nobody will care about I Love Lucy. But Desi would have loved me forever. My children would have had a mother. And I wouldn't be sitting here dying and alone with nothing but regrets." The studio erupted not in applause, but in sobs. Grown men were weeping openly. Women in the audience were holding each other. Johnny Carson put his face in his hands and cried like he'd never cried on television before. Lucy looked at him and whispered, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to fall apart like this." "Don't apologize," Johnny said through his tears. "Don't you dare apologize for telling the truth. What happened next was completely spontaneous." Johnny Carson stood up, walked around his desk, and sat on the couch next to Lucy. He put his arm around her shoulders while she cried into his jacket. The cameras kept rolling, capturing one of the most intimate moments in television history. The audience stood as one. They weren't applauding. They were witnessing, honoring, grieving with her. The ovation went on for 3 full minutes while Lucy sobbed in Johnny's arms. When she finally lifted her head, Johnny handed her his handkerchief. "Lucy," he said softly, "Desi knew you loved him. I promise you he knew." "How can you be sure?" she asked, her voice like a child's. "Because love like that doesn't disappear just because people get divorced," Johnny said. "He waited for you. He loved you until his last breath. He knew Lucy. Trust me." Lucy nodded, unable to speak. She looked out at the audience, then back at the camera. "Please," she said, her voice from crying, "please don't make my mistake. Go home tonight. Tell the people you love that they matter more than anything. Hug your children. Hold your spouse. Choose them. Choose love. Always choose love." Johnny helped her stand. As they walked toward the stage exit, Lucy stopped and turned back one last time. "And Johnny, thank you for letting me tell the truth." Finally, 8 days later, on April 26, 1989, Lucille Ball died of a heart attack. She was 77 years old. Lucy's message reached millions that night. But what happened after her death proved she was right about everything. Stay with us for the ending that will change how you think about success forever. And if this story is touching your heart, hit that subscribe button so you never miss these powerful true stories. The response to Lucy's final interview was unprecedented. NBC received over 400,000 letters in the following month. People wrote about reconciling with Expo users, parents quitting jobs to spend time with their children, families reuniting after years of arrangement. Johnny Carson spoke at Lucy's funeral. "She spent 40 years making us laugh," he said, "but in her final interview, she gave us something more valuable than laughter. She gave us permission to admit our regrets. She gave us the courage to choose differently. She saved marriages. She brought families together." That was Lucy's real legacy. Today, that interview is preserved in the Library of Congress. It's shown in marriage counseling sessions, business ethics classes, and grief therapy groups. Lucy's breakdown became her most important performance, not because it was entertaining, but because it was true. Lucille Ball died with regrets, but because she was brave enough to share them, millions of people changed their lives. They chose love over fame, family over fortune, presence over success. Don't wait until it's too late. Tell someone you love them today. Lucy would want you to subscribe for more powerful true stories. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, choose love. Always choose love.